everyone, I'm Jackie from Firefly Fiber Arts Studio in Chicago, Illinois, and today I'm going to be guiding you through how to make the ponyfish beanie. It's a pattern from Echoview Fiber Mill, and I'm wearing it here today. This is the beanie that I'm wearing. You can see it's super cute, and it's really easy. It utilizes just knits and purls, so you'll get a lot of practice, and it uses a really easy knit two together decrease. So if you've never done decreasing before, if you've never knit in the round before, if you've never read a pattern before, I'm going to be helping you with all of that today. So stay tuned and let's get started. So these are all of the materials that we're going to need to make the ponyfish beanie. We're going to need one skein of Ranger Merino yarn. Or you could use another bulky yarn. I know Echoview has some other bulky lines like their Recycled Yarn Collective and their their Pack-A-Wool here. Either of these would be great. If you want to substitute a bulky yarn that isn't from Echoview Fiber Mill, that's totally fine. Just be aware that the Echoview yarns have 140 yards per hank, and some other brands only have like 100, 109, so you might need two skeins instead of one. So we've got our yarn here, and I've got mine wound up here ready to go. I've got my pattern. I've got a stitch marker to mark the beginning of the round, and I've got my 16-inch size 10 circular needles, which is what we're going to be using to knit in the round. So this pattern is a really good first hat project. Like if you've knit scarves, you knit a cowl, you know how to knit and purl, this is kind of the perfect next step for building your skills. So if you've never read a pattern before, I can guide you through that completely. This first page has a description of the project, our materials list. She has you using size 10 DPNs for the crown up here when it gets smaller, and I will show you how to use those when we get to that point. Here, this is the finished measurements of the finished beanie, and then gauge. So gauge is your size, the size stitch that you end up making with your knitting needle. So this is the designer. She says her gauge is 18 stitches across, equals 4 inches in a rib pattern. Gauge is really important in fitted garments like sweaters and things that you want people to be fitted to their body. On a hat, it's not really as important. If you know you're a really loose knitter, you might want to move down a needle size. If you know you're a really tight knitter, you might want to move up a size. I'm a pretty loose knitter, but I'm still going to knit mine on size 10s because I think it'll be fine. It'll still fit on my head and be a cute beanie. And on the back here, we've got the instructions. And then this is a really important section, the abbreviations in any pattern. So all of the pattern is kind of written in a code. So if we do, after we get finished setting up here, our round 1 says K1, P1, repeat from asterisk to end of round. So if you don't know what K1 and P1 mean, you'll go to the abbreviations section and you'll see that K means knit and P means purl. So when we get to round 1, we will knit 1, purl 1, repeat from asterisk till end of round. So you'll go back to this asterisk, and so you'll just knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1 until you get to the beginning of the round. So this, and then this K2tog, that's the decrease. It's a really good very first decrease if you've never done decreasing before. It's really simple, and that means knit 2 stitches together as one. And it's just like it sounds, but I'm going to guide you through this whole thing. So let's get started. So our first set of instructions here say, using the Longtail Cast-on method and circular needle, cast on 72 stitches. So I'm going to need to give myself a long tail, and I'm going to do about 2 arm spans, a little less. That should be about 72, a little bit extra. So for the Longtail Cast-on, I have my long tail here, and I like to keep that on the north side of my needle. And then this here is attached to my ball over here, and I like to keep it on the south side of my needle. And then I kind of drape it over my needle like this, and I hold down that fold with my index finger so it doesn't go anywhere. And now I am ready to start casting on. So I am going to take my hand, my lower 3 fingers here, and I'm going to hold both of those tails in these 3 fingers on my left hand. And then I'm going to take my forefinger and my thumb, and I'm going to spread these 2 strands apart like that. And then I'm going to flip my wrist up so that there's a loop around my thumb. And that's what everything should look like. It's kind of like you're playing cat's cradle, if you've ever done that. And then we're going to take the needle in your right hand, and we're going to go under this loop on the thumb, over this strand on the index, and then we're just going to go straight through that thumb loop, and then we're going to let it all slide off our thumb and pull it. So now we've got 2 stitches. So that's the fold that we were holding down with our index finger, and that's the stitch that we just cast on. So we'll do that again together. I'm going to grab these 2 strands with my 3 lower fingers on my right hand. Then I'm going to split the yarn apart with my thumb and my forefinger, like so. Flip my wrist up so there's a loop around my thumb, and then I'm going to take the point of the needle and I'm going to go under the thumb, over the pointer, and back through this loop that I've made on my thumb. And then I can slide that loop off my thumb, and I like to just put it right back here, pull it down so that it is ready to be used again. And we don't want to pull these too tight because we want them to kind of be able to move freely on our needles. Otherwise, we're going to have a hard time knitting into them. So, like this. So the pattern says to use a Longtail Cast-on. I don't think it's necessary. This is a nice cast-on. It is probably my favorite because once you get the hang of it, it's pretty quick. But if you are really struggling, go ahead, use whatever cast-on you need to use. And we're just going to keep putting loops on our needle until we have 72 of them. Okay, so I've cast on 72 stitches. I've got a pretty long tail. I don't like having a really long tail on my work, so I'm just going to trim it to about 6 inches in length so that it's not in my way. And now we are ready to do the next step. So our pattern says to knit all stitches, joining in the round. So we're going to knit 1 row flat. So I am going to just turn around, and just like we're knitting with normal needles, we're not on these tiny, we're just going to turn around and I'm going to knit this first stitch. And I'm going to knit the whole row for our setup round. So after we knit this round, that's when we'll be joining them together to knit in a tube. All right, so I have just knit my first row, and now it says knit all stitches. We did that, joining to knit in the round. So this is where we're going to connect these 2 ends to start knitting in a tube. So I'm going to be very careful on this step because we want to make sure that all of our stitches here are lying on the inside of our cord here. I like to put it down on a flat surface. So you can see here, there's a twist around the cord, and we don't want that because then our knitted item will be twisted, and we can't undo that once we start knitting. We'll have to take it all out. So I'm going to just take my time of all the stitches on the inside of the needles, like that, so that I know there are no twists in it at all. So this is where we need our stitch marker. So we're going to place our stitch marker on our needle like this, on our right hand needle, and that'll indicate the beginning of the round. Since we're joining in a circle, it's not going to be clear to us once we start knitting this where the end of the row is. So that's what this little guy does for us, is it tells us when we've finished a row. So all of our stitches are on the inside of our needle and we're ready to join in the round. I'm going to get our tail out of there just a little bit. And then I like to just keep it as flat as possible. And then I'm just going to knit one stitch. And there we go. We are joined in the round. And we are ready to start round one. So it says knit one, purl one, and then repeat. So it says K1, P1, repeat from asterisk to end of round. So this marker, that indicates our end of round. If we go to our abbreviations, we know K means knit, we know P means purl, so we're going to knit one, purl one, and we're going to repeat from this asterisk here until the end of the round. So we're just going to keep knitting one, purling one, knitting one, purling one around this whole thing until we reach the end of the round. And it says to keep repeating round one, so we're going to keep knitting and purling one until our tube, our hat, measures 9 inches from this edge here. So, or 23 centimeters from the cast on edge. So as we knit, this will grow and we're going to keep knitting and purling until we have 9-inch long tube. So we'll do this together. So when we joined, we knit once. We already knit a stitch. So now we're going to need to bring our yarn forward to purl, go into the stitch, purl. So we're going to knit one, purl one, and now repeat. Knit one, yarn forward, purl one, yarn back, knit one, yarn forward, purl one. I knit with my left hand, it's called continental. If you knit with your right hand, that's totally valid. I'll show you how it looks like that. Knit one, yarn forward to purl. I'm not as adept at purling with my right hand as I am with my left. Yarn back to knit, and we're just going to do this until we get to the beginning of the round. Just keep knitting and purling. So this will be a really good hat to practice moving back and forth between knitting and purling. All right, so I have knitted and purled almost the entire first round. I've got one knit and one purl left, so I'll do that. I'll knit one, yarn forward, purl one, and now I've gotten to my stitch marker. And it's really simple. You just move the stitch marker from one side to the other. You don't do anything else to it. You can move it with your fingers back and forth like that if that's easier for you. And that's it. So now we know we've reached one round and we're going to repeat. We're just going to knit and purl. And we're just going to keep repeating that first round until our hat here, which is very tiny right now, but it'll grow. And as soon as it gets to 9 inches, we'll move on to the next step. So this hat is in rib, what's called 1x1 rib, which just means it's one knit, one purl. So you're going to make sure, if this is your first time doing this kind of texture, I'm going to do a couple more stitches so you can see it clearer. If this is your first time doing this sort of texture, you just want to make sure that all of your knit stitches are falling in a column and all of your purl stitches are also falling in a column. You don't want those to get offset because then the rib will be broken and it'll be really easy to see on your finished hat. So you just want to make sure that you've got little columns of knits, purls, knits, purls, knits, purls for your whole hat. If you see that it's broken somewhere, that just means that you've purled or knitted where you were supposed to do the other one. And you should just take those stitches out and fix them. All right, we are now ready for the next step. I've knit 9 inches of just knits and purls. So we can see there, just one big tube. And now we're ready for decreases. And this is where we're going to get into kind of reading the pattern more. So for round one, it says knit one, purl one in parentheses, and then it has a ×3 next to it. So what they're asking you for this ×3 is that we're going to repeat knit 1, purl 1 in this parentheses here 3 times. And then we're going to knit this. If we look at our abbreviations here, we know that this means knit 2 together. And then it says repeat from start to end of round. So for the whole round, we're just going to knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. That'll get us our 3 times, then knit 2 together. So let's do that together. I've already knit 1 here. I always, this is just a little trick that I do when I'm knitting in the round and I need to use a stitch marker. I always knit 1 after, before I put my project down so that my stitch marker doesn't fall off. So I've knit 1 already, so I'm going to purl 1. And so I've done knit 1, purl 1 once. We need to do it 3 times. So I'll do knit 1, purl 1, and then a 3rd time for knit 1 and purl 1. And now it asks us to knit 2 together. So if you haven't done this decrease before, it's really simple. It's exactly as it sounds. We're just going to take these 2 stitches and knit them together as one. So we're going to go into the front of both of those stitches like that. And then we're just going to knit 2 stitches together like so. And then it's asking us to repeat from the star. So again, we will knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. That's 3 times. And then we'll knit 2 together. And I will show you this technique holding the yarn in my right hand in case that's how you knit. So we're just going to go into these 2 stitches as if they were one, and we're just going to knit them together like so. So we will just repeat that. Knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 2 together over and over until we get back to our stitch marker here. I'm about to finish my last repeat of knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, and then knit these last 2 together. Just wanted to show you, let's say you are knitting this round or any of these rounds that have decreases in them, and you put your project down and you don't finish the row, and then you pick your project back up and just you want to figure out, like, did I just knit 2 together? Did I just knit 1? Did I just purl 1? So this is how you can tell. So all your knits and purls should be in a nice column. So you can see here all of my knit rows, or my knit columns are right here. Here's a purl here. And then we have this here. If we stretch this apart, we have this knit column that doesn't have a stitch at the top and this purl column that does. So this is where we knit 2 stitches together because we see a knit and a purl column combining into 1 stitch. So I know this is where I did my last knit 2 together. So I knit 1, purled 1, knit 1, purled 1, knit 1, purled 1, and then here is my knit 2 together. So that's the last thing I did is I knit 2 together. So I'm going to knit, purl, do my last repeat, and then we are ready to do the next row on our decreases. So here's our beginning of the row marker. I'm just going to slip that just like the whole time from one to the other. And then I'm going to just knit 1 so my stitch marker stays on. And then we're ready to read the next section. So round 2 for the decreases says to knit 1, purl 1 times 3, knit 1. And then we just repeat that. So we are going to knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, and then knit 1. So all of those knit 2 togethers that we did, those stitches are going to be knit 1s now. And then it says here at the end of the round, remove your marker, knit 1, replace the marker, and that's the new beginning of the round. So the designer is having us move the beginning of the round 1 stitch over, and that's likely just so her instructions fit a nice pattern. Maybe it probably makes the repeats type out nicer for her. So let's do that together. I'm going to do all my knit 1s, purl 1s, and extra knit 1s, and then we'll move the beginning of the round together. Here I am. I'm about to do my last repeat of the round 2 of decreases. So I'm going to knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, and then knit 1. And then she has us remove this beginning of the round marker. So we're going to take that out and then knit one and then replace this marker. So now this is the beginning of the round and it's not going to move again until the end of, until we take it out for our project is done. So that is pretty much, you don't have any other technique that you need to know except knitting one, purling one, and knitting two together. So you're just gonna keep reading these round decreases, decreases, and follow the instructions. So our next round, it says P1, K1 times 2, and these are in parentheses. So you're gonna purl one, knit one, 2 times. So purl one, knit one, purl one, knit one, and then you're gonna purl one, and then knit two together. And you're just going to keep repeating that over and over again. So you're going to purl one, knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one, knit two together, purl one, knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one, knit two together over and over until you get to the beginning of the round marker. And generally you're decreasing every other round. So I have this on 16-inch circular needles. As we're decreasing, our stitches are going to have to be more and more stretched out as they're trying to reach the cord. You don't have to switch to DPNs, but I do think it's a little easier because I'll show you what's going to happen eventually. You know, you'll be knitting, and as you decrease, you're going to run out of space. And what you're going to have to do if you want to keep it on the cords is you're going to have to pull this cord out and knit like this. And I think it's a little annoying, especially if this is like a beginner kind of project, to try and do this. So I can show you how to work double pointed needles for when so got these here, set of the same size double pointed needles. And I'm going to take a few of these out. And I'm going to work on my stitches. I'm going to just slide these on my double pointed needles without working them. You could work them if you wanted, but I just don't want to keep track of that right now. Like so. And then this side, I'll slide onto these double pointed needles. And then I have another set here. Like I said, this is optional, but I think it's just a little bit easier to manage your stitches when you get to a really tiny circumference. Just keep sliding them on. So I'm just sliding them one by one. And then we've got our final side here, just to get rid of these 16-inch circulars. There we go. So we don't need these anymore, so I'm going to just set them aside. And now we can see that all of our stitches are in this square. And we'll take this extra needle that the set comes with. And now when we go to work, so we're gonna make sure that we're following our pattern. So I purled one, knit one, and now I just work these onto this needle. So I'm gonna purl one, knit one, and then purl one, and then knit two together, just as if I'm kind of just, the trick here is just to ignore all these other needles and just focus on the two that you're holding in your hand. So purl one, knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one, and then knit two together. Purl one, knit one. And now this one's free. So we'll use this one and we'll go on to the next needle. And we'll just keep going, trading off the needle every time we get to the end. Knit two together. So I think this is just a way to ensure that you don't have to deal with stitches getting crowded or pulled really far apart on 16-inch circulars like this. But like I said, this is optional. If this is too much over your head and you'd rather just pull the extra cord out and keep knitting on these, go for that. So you're gonna work all of your decreases until you finish round 11. And then we're going to cinch the hat shut, and I'm going to show you how to do that next. Okay, I have just finished round 11. As you can see, my circumference at the top is really teeny tiny now. And we are ready to finish this project up. So we definitely don't need the beginning round marker anymore. So I'm going to take that off. And we will need a tapestry needle for this next step. So I've got one here. Tapestry needle is just a big fat needle that you can fit yarn through the eye of. So I've got that there. And then I'm gonna cut my yarn, leaving like a 6-inch tail. So it's my extra yarn I don't need. And now I'm going to thread my tail on my tapestry needle. I like to fold it over and then pinch it and then slide it and then kind of shove that pinched end through the eye. That's something that I found works really well for me. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take this tail and we're going to just slide it in to these stitches in order. So slide this one off, slide this one off, this one, and then this one. Put this aside, and we can just take it off as we go along. There we go. Pull it through. Our next double pointed needle. Through, and then our last little bit here. So we've gone through all of them, and then we literally can just cinch it shut like that. Tug on it, and it is closed. And that is your beanie. You'll weave in the ends, trim them, and you are all done. Great job.